Group 5. The Cosmic Web's Hidden Highways. The invisible structure that connects the universe. Intro. The universe is not empty. For a long time, we believed space was mostly empty. Between galaxies, nothing. Between clusters, silence, a vast, cold void. But was never true. But that was never true, because hidden in the darkness there is a structure, not visible, not glowing, not directly detectable, a network, a web, stretching across the entire universe stretching across the universe, stretching across the entire universe, connecting everything. And once you saw it, you realized something unsettling. The universe was never random. It was connected all along. Chapter 1. The first hint of a hidden structure. It began with a problem. Galaxies were not distributed randomly. When astronomers mapped the sky, they noticed patterns. Clusters of galaxies gathered into shape, lines, walls, filaments, and between them, vast empty voids. At first, it looked like coincidence, but as more data came in, the pattern became undeniable. The universe was not scattered, it was organized. Chapter 2. The discovery of the cosmic web. As simulation improved, scientists began recreating the evolution of the universe, starting from tiny fluctuation, letting gravity do the rest. What they saw was unexpected. Matter did not collapse evenly, it flowed like rivers, forming long, thin strands stretching across space. These strands connected massive clusters of galaxies, and together they formed something extraordinary, a web, the cosmic web. Chapter 3. The invisible highway of matter. But the most important part of this web was invisible, because most of its mass was not stars, not galaxies, but dark matter, an unseen substance that does not emit light, but shape the universe through gravity. These filaments act like highways. Matter flows along them. Dust, galaxies are moving through the invisible channels, slowly, over billions of years, building the structure of the universe itself. Chapter 4. The flow of galaxies. Galaxies are just not drifting randomly through space. They are moving along paths, guided by the cosmic web. Clusters grow where filaments intersect. Voids expand where matter is pulled away, and over time, the universe becomes more structured, more connected, more organized. This is not chaos, this is flow. Chapter 5. The void is not empty. Between the filaments lie enormous voids, regions with almost no galaxies. At first, these voids seem like empty space, but they are not empty. They are part of the structure. Matter has been pulled away from them into the filaments, leaving behind vast regions of near-nothingness. The universe is not filled evenly. The universe is not filled evenly. It is shaped by absence as much as presence. Chapter 6. The scale of the web. The cosmic web is not small at all. It is not local. It spans the entire observable universe. Filaments stretch across hundreds of millions of light years. Clusters sit at their intersection like nodes, and voids expand between them like empty ocean. This is the largest structure known to exist, larger than galaxies, larger than larger than clusters. It is the architecture of the universe itself. Chapter 7: The Unseen Force Behind Everything. At the heart of this structure lies something we cannot see: dark matter. Without it, the web would not exist. Gravity alone, from visible matter, is not enough. There is something more, something shaping the universe from the behind scenes, something we can detect but not directly observe. Chapter 8: The First Direct Evidence of the Filaments. For a long time, the cosmic web existed only in simulations, mathematical models that predicted how matter should organize itself under the influence of gravity and dark matter. But science demands of us observation, and without direct evidence, the web remained a theory, a convincing one, but still incomplete. And then, as telescopes became more sensitive and instruments more precise, something remarkable began to appear: faint traces of gas stretching between galaxies, incredibly diffuse, almost visible, but detectable through the way it absorbed and re-emitted light. And these observations provided the first direct confirmation that the filaments were real, that the universe would truly contain these vast, thread-like structures connecting galaxies across enormous distances. And this discovery transformed the cosmic web from a theoretical construct into an observable reality, revealing that what we had long suspected was not only possible but true. The Chapter 9: The Flow of Matter Through the Web. Once the filaments were confirmed, a deeper question emerged: not just what they are, but what they do, and the answers reveal something even more extraordinary. Because the cosmic web is not static, it is not a frozen structure suspended in space. It is dynamic, constantly moving, constantly evolving, with matter flowing along these filaments like rivers through a landscape, gas stream toward galaxies, feeding star formation. Dark matters shape the gravitational pathways, guiding the motion of entire cluster, and over billions of years, this flow builds the large-scale structure of the universe, creating the pattern we observe today. And within these process lies a profound shift in understanding, because it shows that the galaxies are not isolated systems. They are part of a larger network, influenced by the continuous movement of matter through the web. Chapter 10: The Hidden Role of Dark Matter in Structure Formation. At the heart of this entire process lies something that remains unseen: dark matter, a substance that does not emit light, does not interact with magnetic does not interact with electromagnetic radiation, and yet exerts a powerful gravitational influence, shaping the structure of the universe at every scale. And without dark matter, the cosmic web would not form, because visible matter alone does not have enough gravitational pull to create such vast and intricate structures. And this means that the filaments we observe are, in a sense, shadows of something deeper, visible tracer of an invisible framework that defines the architecture of the cosmos. And this realization adds another layer of mystery, because it suggests that most of the universe structure is determined by something we cannot directly observe, something that exists beyond the limits of current detection, and yet leaves unmistakable evidence of its presence. Chapter 11: The Connection Between Filaments and Galaxy Evolution. As scientists began to study the relationship between galaxy and cosmic web, another pattern emerged, one that revealed how deeply connected these systems are. Because galaxies do not form randomly within the web, they form along filaments, where matter is concentrated, and they grow by accreting materials that flow through these structures, and this means that the environment of a galaxy is location within the cosmic web play a crucial role in its evolution, determining how it forms, how it grows, and how it interacts with other galaxies. And within this framework, the universe begins to look less like a collection of independent objects and more like an interconnected system where each part influences and influenced by the larger structure in which it exists. Chapter 13: The Voids. The other half of the structure. While much attention is given to the filaments and cluster, the void between them are equally important because they represent regions where matter is scarce, where the influence of gravity has pulled material away, leaving behind vast expanses of near emptiness, and these voids are not only simply gaps in the universe, they are integral parts of its structure, shaping the distribution of matter by creating contrast between dense and empty regions. And as the universe evolves, these voids expand, pushing matter further into the filaments, reinforcing the structure of the cosmic web. And this dynamic process shows that emptiness itself plays a role in shaping the universe, that the absence of matter is just as important as its presence. Chapter 14: The Universe as a Flowing System. As all these elements come together, a new picture of the universe begins to emerge, one that is fundamentally different from the static, isolated view that once dominated cosmology, because instead of a universe made up of separate objects, we see a system in motion, a network through which matter flows, redistributes, and evolves over time. And this flow is not random. It follows the structure of the cosmic web, guided by gravity and shaped by dark matter. And within this system, galaxies are not endpoints, they are nodes, temporary concentration of matter within a much larger process. And this perspective transforms our understanding of the universe from something fixed and disconnected into something dynamic and interconnected. Chapter 15: The Realization Nothing Exists Alone. And at the deepest level of this realization lies a simple but profound truth that nothing in the universe exists alone, that every galaxy, every cluster, every structure is part of a larger network, connected through invisible pathways that span unimaginable distances. And this connection is not metaphorical, it is physical, embedded in the very structure of the cosmos. And once this is understood, the universe appears fundamentally different, not as a collection of isolated objects, but as a single, interconnected system, a web in which everything is linked, everything is influenced, and everything is part of something greater. Chapter 16: The Realization that the web is still growing. Even after billions of years, the cosmic web is not complete. It is still evolving, still stretching, still redistributing matter across unimaginable distances. And this is one of the most important realizations because it shows that the universe is not a finished structure. It is an ongoing it is an ongoing process, a system that continues to change even at the largest scale. And as space expands, the filaments become longer, the voids become larger. And this structure is one of the most important realizations because it shows that the universe is not a finished structure, it is an ongoing process, a system that continues to change even at the largest scale. And as space expands, the filaments become longer, the voids become larger, and the flow of matter continues. slowly but relentlessly shaping the architecture of the cosmos. And this means that what we see today is not only a snapshot, a temporary state within a much larger evolution, and that the web we observe now will not be the same in the distant future, because the universe itself is still in motion. Chapter 17: The possibility that the web defines everything. As the structure of the cosmic web becomes clearer, another idea begins to emerge: the possibility that this network is not just one aspect of the universe, but the defining framework of it. That with everything we observe, from galaxy to cluster, is shaped by its position within this web, and that without it, the universe will not have the structure it does, and this shifts the perspective dramatically, because instead of thinking of the web as something that exists within the universe, we begin to see the universe as something that exists within the web. A subtle but profound inversion that changes how we interpret everything from galaxy formation to large-scale motion. Chapter 18: The Flow of Time Through Structure. At this point, an even deeper layer of understanding begins to take shape, one that connects structure with time itself, because the flow of matter through the cosmic web is not just a spatial process, it is a temporal one, a record of how the universe evolves. And within this flow lies a kind of timeline, a history of movement, accumulation, and transformation that unfolds over, over billions of years, and this suggests that the web is not just a structure, but a process, a dynamic system that encodes the evolution of the universe within its very form. And this realization adds a new dimension to our understanding, because it shows that the universe is not just something that exists, but something that is continuously becoming. Chapter 19: The Possibility that Everything is Part of a Single System. As this idea converges, a powerful conclusion begins to emerge: that everything in the universe is part of a single system, not loosely connected, but deeply integrated, with each other component influencing and being influenced by the others. And within this system, the cosmic web acts as the underlying framework, the structure that connects all parts of the universe into a cohesive whole. And this challenges the traditional view of the cosmos as a collection of independent objects, replacing it with a vision of interconnectedness, where nothing exists in isolation, and where the behavior of any single galaxy is influenced by forces and structures that extend far beyond its immediate surrounding. Chapter 20: The Edge of Understanding, a network too large to fully see. Despite all the progress, there remains a fundamental limitation, because the cosmic web is so vast, so immense, that we can never observe it in its entirety. We can only see fragments, portions of the network revealed through observation and simulation. And this creates a paradox, because while we know that web exists, we can never fully map it, never fully visualize its complete structure, and this limitation forces us to rely on models, on indirect evidence, on reconstructions that approximate the true nature of the web. And within this limitation lies a reminder that our understanding of the universe is always partial, always evolving, always incomplete. Chapter 21: The Possibility that the web extends beyond what we can observe. As we consider the limits of observation, another idea becomes unavoidable: that the cosmic web does not end at the boundary of the observable universe, but continues beyond it, extending into regions we cannot see. And this means that the network we observe is only a portion of a much larger structure, one that may be far more complex, far more extensive than anything we currently imagine. And within this context, the web becomes not just a feature of our observable universe, but a fundamental property of the cosmos itself, a structure that exists at scale beyond our ability to measure. Chapter 22: The shift from objects to connection. At the deepest level of understanding, a shift occurs, one that changes the way we think about the universe entirely, because instead of focusing on objects, on galaxies, stars, and clusters, we begin to focus on connection, on the relationship between them, on the pathways through which matter and energy move, and the shift reveals that the true nature of the universe may not lie in the things it contains, but in the connection that link them. And within this perspective, the cosmic web is not just a structure, but it is the essence of the universe organization, the underlying pattern that defines how everything is arranged and how everything interacts. The chapter 23: The possibility that the universe is more like a system than a space. As this perspective deepens, the universe begins to look less like empty space filled with objects and more like a system, a network of interaction, flows, and relationships that extend across vast distances. And this system is not static, it is dynamic, constantly evolving, constantly reshaping itself as matter moves and structures grow, and within this system, the cosmic web acts as the framework that guides this evolution, determining how matter flows, how structure forms, and how the universe changes over time. Chapter 24: The Final Realization. The universe is connected at every scale. And finally, all these ideas converge into a single realization that the universe is connected at every scale, from the smallest particles to the largest structures, and that these connections are not incidental, they are fundamental, embedded in the very nature of reality. And within this realization lies a profound shift in understanding, because it suggests because that the universe is not a collection of separate parts, but a unified whole, a system which everything is linked through the cosmic web, and where the behavior of any part is influenced by the structure of the whole. Chapter 25: The possibility that connection became the possibility that connection came before structure. At the deepest level of interpretation, one more idea begins to emerge, not about galaxy, not about dark matter, but about something more fundamental, the possibility that the connection itself came before structure, that the universe did not begin as isolated points that later became linked, but as a system in which relationship existed first and structure formed as a result of those relationships. And if this is true, then the cosmic web is not something that developed over time, but something that was implicit from the very beginning, a framework that shaped how matter would evolve, where it would flow, and how it would organize itself into the structures we observe today. And this idea transforms the web from a product of cosmic evolution into a foundation of it, suggesting that the universe may be defined not by what it contains, but by how those contents are connected. Chapter 26: The idea that space may not be empty at all. For the generation, space had been described as empty, a vast expanse between objects, but the cosmic web challenges this idea in a fundamental way, because even in the regions we once consider void, there are still traces of structure, faint filament, diffuse gas, gravitational influence, and underlying dark matter distribution that define the shape of the cosmos, and this suggests that emptiness itself may be an illusion, not a true absence, but a region of lower density within a larger system. And within this perspective, space is not empty, it is structured, filled with connections that are simply too subtle to be easily observed. And this realization changes how we think about the universe, because it replaces the idea of emptiness with the idea of hidden complexity. Chapter 27. The possibility that we are inside a living system. As the idea of connection deepens, a more abstract interpretation begins to take shape, one that views the universe as a static structure, but as something more one that views the universe not as a static structure, but as something more dynamic, more system-like, almost reminiscent of processes we associate with living systems, not in sense of biology, but in the sense of continuous flow, adaptation, and interconnectedness, where the matter moves, structures grow, and patterns evolve over time. And within this framework, the cosmic web can be seen as the circulatory system of the universe, a network through which matter flows and redistributes, sustaining the formation and evolution of galaxies. And while this analogy is not literal, it provides a way to conceptualize the universe as something more than just a collection of objects, as a system that is constantly changing and reorganizing itself. Chapter 28. The limit of observation. We see only the brightest nodes. Despite all we have learned, this remains a fundamental limitation in how we observe the cosmic web, because most of what we detect are the brightest parts, the galaxy, the clusters, the nodes where matter accumulates and emits light. But the majority of the web, the filaments themselves, the diffuse gas, the dark matter's backbone, remains largely invisible. And this means that our view of the universe is incomplete, biased toward the most visible structure, and that the true nature of the cosmic web is far more extensive than what we can currently observe. And within this limitation lies an important insight that what we perceive as the universe is only a partial representation of a larger and more complex system. Chapter 29. The final shift from seeing to understanding. At this stage, the nature of the exploration changes once again, because it's become clear that observation alone is not enough, that to truly understand the cosmic web, we must go beyond what we can see, beyond the visible nodes, and into the underlying structure that connects them. And this requires new methods, new models, and new ways of thinking, approaches that focus not just on objects, but on relationships, on flows, on patterns that are not immediately visible but can be inferred through their effects. And this shift represents a deeper level of understanding, one that moves from describing what the universe looks like to understanding how it functions. Chapter 30. The final realization. The universe is not a network of relationship. And finally, all of these ideas converge into a single, powerful realization that the universe is not defined by the objects within it, but by the relationship between them. That galaxy, cluster, and structure are not isolated entities, but nodes within a vast and intricate network, and that this network, the cosmic web, is the true architecture of the universe, the framework that shapes everything we observe. And within this realization lies a shift in perspective that is both profound and transformative, because it suggests that to understand the universe, we must understand its connection, not just its components. Chapter 31. The possibility that the web defines motion itself. At the deepest level of reflection, a new perspective begins to emerge, one that shifts the role of the cosmic web from a passive structure into an active framework, because instead of thinking that galaxies move freely through space and simply happen to align with filaments, it becomes possible that their motion is defined by the web itself, that the pathways they follow are not accidental but dictated by the underlying structure of the universe. And within this perspective, movement is no longer independent, it guided, constrained, shaped by invisible roots, shaped by invisible roots that exist long before galaxy fully formed. And this suggests that the web is not just connecting objects, it is directing them, providing a kind of cosmic infrastructure through which matter flows, evolves, and organizes itself over time. Chapter 32. The idea that gravity is not the only architect. For centuries, gravity had been considered the primary force shaping the large-scale structure of the universe, pulling matter together, forming stars, galaxies, and clusters. But the existence of cosmic webs suggests that gravity alone may not fully explain the complexity we observe, because while gravity drives the accumulation of matter, the specific patterns, the long filaments, the interconnected networks, and the vast voids imply an additional layer of organization, something that guides how gravity operates across enormous scales. And within this framework, gravity becomes part of a larger system, one that includes dark matter distribution, initial condition, and possibly deeper principles that determine how structure emerge from the earliest moment of the universe. Chapter 33. The possibility that the universe is more like a map than a space. As the conceptual shift continues, the universe begins to resemble something different, not just a three-dimensional space filled with objects, but a map, a structured layout in which positions, connectors, and pathways are all part of a larger design. And within this map, the cosmic web acts as the underlying grid, the framework that defines where matter can accumulate, how it moves, and how structures evolve. And this perspective changes the way we interpret cosmic distance and motion, because instead of seeing space as an empty backdrop, we begin to see it as a structured environment, one that influences everything within it. And within this environment, galaxies are not just objects moving through space, they are points within a system that defines their behavior. Chapter 34. The possibility that we have been looking at the ground thing. For most human history, astronomy has focused on the visible, on stars, galaxies, and bright objects that can be observed directly. But the discovery of the cosmic web suggests that this focus may have been incomplete, that the most important aspect of the universe is not the objects themselves, but the structure that connects them, and this realization forces a shift in attention away from individual galaxies and toward the network that link them. And within this shift lies a deeper understanding that what we have been studying may be only the most visible parts of a much larger and more fundamental system, and that the true nature of the universe lies not in what shines, but in what connects. Chapter 35. The final possibility. The web as the true shape of reality. At the edge of interpretation, one final idea emerges, one that brings all previous insights together. The possibility that the cosmic web is not just a feature of the universe, but its true shape, not in geometric sense, but in the structural sense, the underlying pattern that defines how everything is arranged and how everything interacts. And if this is true, then the universe is not defined by empty space punctuated by objects, but by a continuous network of connection, a structure that spans all scales and influences every aspect of cosmic evolution. And within this framework, the web becomes not just a part of the universe, but its defining characteristic, the foundation upon which everything else is built. Chapter 36: The possibility that connection is more fundamental than matter. At the deepest level of interpretation, one final shift begins to emerge, one that changes not just how we see the universe, but how we define it. The possibility that matter itself is not the primary component of reality, but a secondary expression of something more fundamental, connection, because everything we observe, from particles to galaxies, exists within a network of relationship, interactions, and influences. And within the cosmic web, this becomes visible at the larger scale, where matter appears not as isolated entities, but as concentrations within a continuous structure. And if this perspective is taken seriously, then the universe is not built from objects that happen to be connected, but from connections that give rise to objects, a reversal that places relationship at the core of reality itself. Chapter 37: The idea that the universe may be self-organizing at every scale. As this idea develops, another concept begins to align with it. The notion that the universe may be self-organizing, that its structure is not imposed eternally but emerges naturally from the interaction of its components. And within this framework, the cosmic web is not a fixed design, but a dynamic outcome, a pattern that arises from the interplay of gravity, dark matter, expansion, and initial condition. And this organization occurs at every scale, from the clustering of galaxies to the formation of filaments, suggesting that the same underlying principles may operate throughout the universe, creating patterns that repeat, evolve, and adapt over time. And this perspective reinforces the idea that the universe is not static, but constantly shaping itself through its own internal processes. Chapter 13:8: The possibility that we are seeing a universal pattern. As the patterns within the cosmic web become clearer, a broader question emerges, one that extends beyond cosmology into the nature of pattern itself. The possibility that the structures we observe are not unique to the universe, but reflect a more universal principle, a tendency for systems to organize into networks, interconnect, into into interconnected structures that balance complexity and efficiency. And while this idea remains abstract, it suggests that the cosmic may be one instance of a broader pattern, one that appears in different forms across different scales, and that understanding these patterns may provide insight not just into the universe, but into the nature of structure itself. Chapter 39: The Final Limit, where structure meets meaning. At the edge of all these interpretations lies a boundary, not of observation, but of meaning, because as we move from describing structures to interpreting their significance, we enter a space where science and philosophy begin to overlap, where the question is no longer just how the universe is structured, but what that structure implies. And within this space, the cosmic web becomes more than a physical system. It becomes a framework through which we interpret the nature of reality, a structure that challenges us to rethink what it means for things to be connected, to exist, and to interact within a system that is far larger and more complex than we can fully comprehend. The 40: The Final Perspective, a universe built on relationships. And finally, after everything has been explored, one perspective remains, not as a definitive answer, but as a way of seeing the universe that brings all these ideas together. The perspective that the universe is fundamentally relational, that its structure is defined not by isolated components, but by the connection between them, and the- that that these connections are not secondary, but primary, shaping the behavior, evolution, and existence of everything within it. And within its perspective, the cosmic web is not just a feature of the universe, it is its essence, the underlying structure that defines how everything is linked together.